Episode 14, From the Shadow of Empire to the Rise of a New Power. Did you know that the end of World War I was, for Iran, just the beginning of the story? From the ashes of a fallen empire, a new seed of power was quietly taking root. But whose hands would bring it to life? Hello to all our loyal followers of the untold history of Iran. If you've been with us so far, you already know. Every season of this series uncovers truths long buried beneath the dust of history. But today, in episode 14, we enter a turning point that changed everything. From ruin to awakening, from chaos to order. And out of the turmoil rose a man whose name would forever alter Iran's destiny. And the good news? At the end of this video, a special surprise awaits you. A sneak peek at our next season, filled with untold revelations, hidden power plays, and the secrets behind the fall of the Ottoman Empire. So stay with us until the very end, because I promise what you'll see there will forever change the way you view modern world history. Iran, after the war. At the end of World War I, Iran was a wounded and exhausted nation. Its soil had been trampled by foreign armies, its economy shattered, and its government powerless and discredited. But something within Iranian society was changing. The people were no longer the silent nation they once were. Out of famine and destruction, a new sense of national identity and awakening began to emerge. Yet the indifference of global powers and the weakness of Iran's own diplomacy brought the country to the brink of a new crisis. One born not from war, but from politics. Part 1. The Shadow of the 1919 Agreement. In 1919, the wounds of war had yet to heal. At that moment, Britain, victorious in the Great War, sought to strengthen its influence across the Middle East, especially in Iran, a land of untapped resources and vital geography. Vasukh od-Dawla, Iran's prime minister at the time, signed an agreement with Britain. On paper, it promised reform and modernization of Iran's military and finances. But in reality, it jeopardized the nation's very independence. Under its terms, British advisors would take control of Iran's army and treasury. In simple words, Iran was to become a British protectorate. When the news broke, waves of anger spread throughout the country. Clerics, intellectuals, students, and ordinary citizens cried out together, "Iran is not for sale." Protests erupted in Tehran, Tabriz, Isfahan, and Mashhad. The people demanded their independence, even if it cost them blood. In the end, public outrage forced the government to abandon the treaty. But the wound of mistrust grew deeper than ever toward both the government and the British Empire. The agreement collapsed, but in its wake, Iran was left adrift, heading straight into another storm. Part 2. Chaos and the Search for Salvation. In the years that followed, Iran became a fragmented, leaderless nation. In the north, Russian Bolsheviks extended their reach. In the south, British forces still occupied key regions. In the west, tribal leaders ruled their lands independently. And in the capital, a weak government struggled amidst corruption and confusion. The country stood on the edge of collapse. Yet at that very moment, foreign powers, especially Britain, were looking for a new figure, someone who could restore order while still serving their interests. In Tehran, whispers began to spread. Iran needs a man of iron. Part 3. The man from the Cossack Brigade. Among the ranks of the Persian Cossack Brigade, one name was on everyone's lips. Reza Khan Mirpang, a strict, disciplined soldier, respected by his men and noticed by foreign officers. Reza Khan was not a politician, nor tied to any faction, but his ambition and sense of order made him the perfect piece in the great game of power. In the winter of 1921, with indirect British backing, particularly from Sir Herman Norman, the British envoy, and coordination with a few Iranian politicians, Reza Khan marched from Qazvin toward Tehran. On the morning of February 21st, the sound of boots echoed through the capital's streets. A coup, bloodless yet decisive. The government fell. Sayed Ziauddin Tabatabai became prime minister, and Reza Khan was appointed commander-in-chief of the armed forces. Iran, under a heavy silence, entered a new era, one that would rewrite its destiny. Part 4. The beginning of a new order. In the years that followed, Reza Khan ruled with an unprecedented resolve. He unified and reorganized the army, reformed taxation, and centralized power once again in Tehran. Roads and railways were built, modern schools established, and a drive toward modernization began. After years of chaos, people saw in Reza Khan the face of order and strength. But behind that authority, the shadows of foreign influence still lingered. Britain and the Soviet Union watched closely from afar, and Reza Khan, shrewd as ever, played his game between the two. For the first time in decades, Iranians began to hope again, though few realized how heavy the price of that hope would be. Part 5. A nation on the brink of transformation. By the early 1920s, Iran had taken on a new face, a stronger central government, a more self-aware nation, and an independence that was no longer just a slogan, but a reality taking shape. Yet this new path came with its cost. The concentration of power in one man, the suppression of dissent, and the birth of a regime that would soon become a monarchy. From dust and blood, from humiliation and occupation, Iran rose once more, but this time reborn, led by a man whose rule would change its future forever. End of episode 14. Iran rose from chaos. From the ashes of war and humiliation, it stepped toward a new order. A man from the Cossack Brigade had emerged, and with him, a nation that would no longer be a pawn of foreign powers. But this is only half the story. While Iran was transforming, to the west, one of the greatest empires in history was collapsing. An empire whose shadow had long stretched over the Middle East, the Ottoman Empire. Its fall would forever reshape the map of the region, giving birth to nations whose destinies remain intertwined with politics, oil, and power to this very day. And while Iran was building a new future, in the West, the borders of the modern world were being drawn. In episode 15, we'll uncover the hidden truths behind the fall of the Ottoman Empire, the story of lands divided by war, and how decisions made in Europe's dark rooms changed the fate of millions forever. This is only the beginning of the next chapter of history. So make sure your notification bell is on, because the next episode is one of the most shocking and revealing yet.